Hello again, everyone. Sorry for my lack of video posts last week. It was my birthday, my wife's birthday, and I was having a little technology issues, but I think those have been fixed. So I will be continuing with the videos this week. And I'll look at Washington this week, so just going to bump everything back a week. And big week in sports this week with the drafts coming up, with the NHL and NBA drafts coming up at the end of the week. So I'm going to leave those teams with Washington week. So I'm going to leave the Capitals as well as the Wizards for the NBA, and then I'm going to look at Portland Trailblazers this week as well. I'm going to leave those teams till the end of the week, until it gets closer to the draft, maybe even after the draft, and talk about the picks they make and the impact that those players might have on their team or might not have on their team, depending on who they pick. So I'm going to start the week off looking at the Redskins of the NFL. They're the team of all Washington teams. They're the team that struggles the most, or at least has been struggling the most as of recent play. 4-12 record last year. They do play in a tough division in the NFC East. Cowboys and Eagles both had very good records last year, 12-4 and 10-6 respectively for those two teams, and the Giants were 6-10. And the Giants are recent Super Bowl winners, so you can never really count them out. They have been having some struggles recently as well themselves. So it is a tough division though, for sure. To win this division, you got to have a minimum 10-6 season, in my opinion. It's not like the NFC South where you could go 500 and could win the division. This division, you got to have minimum 10-6. Last year, the Cowboys went with a 12-4 record, so maybe even you need a 12-4 record to win this division. So the Redskins almost have to flip their record just to win the division. To make the playoffs, I think even if you don't win your division, you still got to have a 10-win season. There are some divisions, like I said, with the NFC South, that you can go 8-8 and make the playoffs. But to be safe to make the playoffs, you got to go 10-6, in my opinion. And I think the Redskins are on the right track. I don't think they're going to reach that plateau this year, but I think they are going to start turning it around. Good draft picks they made. Scherf, the guard out of Iowa, with their first round pick, 5th overall. Preston Smith's going to be a great defensive end for them out of Mississippi State. And then they drafted Matt Jones, the running back out of Florida, who I think was the 5th or maybe 6th overall running back taken. Generally speaking, you don't see many running backs taken in the first round. This year there was 2, but that was the first time we've seen that in a few years. So usually the top running backs you're going to see go in the 2nd and 3rd round. So I do think Matt Jones is going to be a great running back for this team going forward. Crowder, I think, with their 4th round pick, will be a decent receiver. They also drafted Evan Spencer, a receiver in the 6th round of Ohio State. So they got a couple receivers there. They drafted another guard, Cohen Gio, out of Alabama, with their another 4th round pick. And in the 5th round, they took Martell Spate, who is an outside linebacker out of Arkansas. So those are kind of how the draft picks went. Definitely with the quarterback situation, you got to have a solid offensive line and defensive line as well. You know, you got to be good in the trenches to have a successful team, and I think that's why they went with the draft picks they went early on. And I think Matt Jones is going to be a solid running back to go around with Morris. That's where I'll start with position players. We'll look at the running backs first. Got Matt Jones, bringing him in. Morris had a 1,000-yard rushing season last year, 265 attempts, which isn't too bad. That's only about 16 attempts, 17 attempts per game. They combine those 1,000 yards, 1,074 to be precise. You can combine those yards with 8 touchdowns. So he's a solid running back. Nowadays, you don't see too many 1,000-yard rushers. You might see half a dozen a season kind of thing. Maybe you get to 10. But to be a 1,000-yard rusher in the NFL is a huge accomplishment. And to do it with only 17 attempts per game, 16, 17 attempts per game, that's solid. If the Redskins do find a way to turn the season around and are in the playoff hunt this upcoming year, it's important that your running backs aren't rushing the ball 20 to 25 times a game, which, sure, if they can do that and get to 1,000 yards, that's great. But keeping their rushing attempts to somewhere between 15 and 20, it's going to not gas them out. And when it comes to week 14, 15, 16, they're still going to have something left in the tank. And I think bringing Matt Jones in, I think you got a couple guys there who you can easily run the ball 30 times a game, 17, 18 times to Morris, and then the other 15 or so to Matt Jones. I think you got a solid combination there. They also got Thompson, Reed, and Hill as a fullback in their system as well, so we'll see if they get any touches this upcoming year. Looking at the receivers, I'm going to get to the quarterbacks last, because I think that's kind of where the interesting story is going to lie for this upcoming season. When you look at their receivers, they got Pierre Garçon as well as Deshaun Jackson, who last year had a 1,000-yard receiving season. Jackson did with 1,169 yards of 56 receptions. Garçon had 68 receptions for 752 yards. They combined for 9 touchdowns, so that's solid. You also have Roberts, who had 453 yards with 36 receptions. And a couple tight ends you have with Reed and Paul can also get you some receptions. Last year, those two guys combined for 89 receptions and just about 1,000 yards between your tight ends. So you got a couple tight ends that can, get 100 receptions or 89 receptions between the two of those guys last year and get you 1,000 yards. That's an important position to have coming off the line if they can be good run blockers and have that dual aspect to their game that's solid. So you got a couple tight ends there, and Garcon and Jackson are some solid receivers. You did bring in Jamison Crowder, who comes from Duke, which usually isn't a football school. Usually Duke's seen as a basketball school, but if he's got good hands and can make some impact on the field, you see some solid receivers taken in the 6th or 7th round. It's all about they put in the work. They have the skills. Intangibles can be a big thing too. If they just have a good attitude and a good work ethic and they're good in the locker room, those guys that you take in the 6th, 7th round can crack rosters and can have impacts on a team. They might not become the 1,000-yard receivers that you anticipate coming out of a 1st or 2nd round receiver, but receivers you get in the 4th and 6th rounds, those kind of guys that the Redskins have got here, if they can crack the roster, they can make an impact with strong work ethic and learn the playbook well and find some chemistry with the quarterback, and they can go forward and make an impact with this team. And that's where I think the tough decision lies, is who's going to be your quarterback. You got Griffin, you got Cousins, and you got McCoy, all of which, in my opinion, are starting quarterback caliber type of players. Griffin last year only played in 9 games, 68.7 completion percentage, just under 1,700 yards. That's solid. Cousins played in 6 games, 61.8 completion percentage, just over 1,700 yards. And then McCoy played in 5 games, had a 71.1% completion percentage with just over 1,000 yards. Most of these guys were about a touchdown and interception. For 1 touchdown, they had 1 pick, and that's not a scenario you want. You want a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio if you can manage that. 4-to-1 is fantastic. 2-to-1, you're not going to take that. 20 touchdowns to 10 picks sounds great, but you'd like better than that for sure. And I think, like I said, all 3 of these guys have starting qualities. I think Griffin, his knees, how much of that's going to affect his game. He does like to run a lot, and I think that's what's hurt him, unfortunately, and has caused him a lot of injury. How much of that is offensive line's fault and not getting enough time to find his reads and make his throws, and he just runs off. You can look at how much of that's the offensive line's fault, how much of that is him being impatient and knowing that he can make plays with his legs, so he just doesn't look at all his reads and doesn't try to get the ball out. He just sees an opportunity to get 6 yards with his legs, and he's going to take it. But that's what's going to lead to him getting hurt, and not too many quarterbacks who you see who like to run the ball 15 times a game are going to last this long in this league. Or if they do try to do that, they're good for about 2 or 3 years, and then they need to realize that that's just too reckless to play at the quarterback position. Your organization has put a lot of money into you to get you going forward, and I think Griffin's going to have to be a little more patient to become more of a pocket passer to be successful in this league and to stay healthy in this league for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see how the preseason goes, where they go going forward with that quarterback position. Looking at the defense quickly, cornerback position, you got Hall, who didn't miss a single game from 2010 to 2013, and in the 2013 season he had 13 pass deflections and 4 picks. So he did only play in 3 games last year, but if he comes back healthy, he's still got something left in the tank based on what you see him based on what he did in 2013. Breland and Emerson are some solid young cornerbacks they got last year. They combined for 21 pass deflections and 2 picks. Breland had 14 of those pass deflections, so I think he's a great cornerback for this team going forward. Brought in some guys for some winning organizations with Johnson, who comes from Seattle, Nacho, who comes from Denver, who in 2013 with Denver he had 73 tackles with 6 pass deflections. You also brought in Goldston and Culliver. Culliver comes from San Francisco, so any team he was going to be an improvement. So not necessarily a winning organization, but definitely a guy who can produce for his team. He had 14 pass deflections and 4 interceptions last year with the San Francisco 49ers, so a good guy to bring in for your team for sure. Defensive line, you got Kearse, who had 3 sacks last year. Baker had 39 tackles. Goldston only played in 11 games, so we'll see if he can come back. Hatcher had 5.5 sacks. Jean-Francois had 3 sacks and 4 pass deflections with the Colts last year. Again, winning organization, good guy to bring in. Knighton had 2 sacks and 3 pass deflections with Denver. And then Paella last year had 6 sacks and 2 pass deflections with the Bears. So they brought in a lot of guys. Defensive line's going to look a lot different, especially when you drafted Preston Smith with the second pick, high pick, 38th overall. Defensive line's going to look a lot different. Your linebackers can definitely find a way to get to the quarterback. Kerrigan had 13.5 sacks from the linebacker position. Robinson led the team in total tackles with 109, and Riley, the other inside linebacker, had 93 tackles. They combined those three guys for 3.5 sacks and 7 pass deflections. So your linebackers can definitely find a way to interrupt plays. So if they can't get to the quarterback, they're getting their hands up and getting those pass deflections, which is important as well. So the defensive line is going to look a lot different. I think their defensive backfield is growing and it's going to be okay. They brought in Culver, who I think is going to be a huge impact on this team. The defensive line is going to look a lot different, but I think you gotta roll the dice with these draft picks. I think Preston Smith's going to be great for this team. I think Sheriff's going to be a great offensive lineman going forward. So good luck to the Redskins going forward this season and into the future. Hopefully your quarterback situation will find an answer to itself. I think you got 3 great guys there. I think any one of them is going to be a great guy going forward with this team. I don't think they got to go and find a quarterback or they needed to draft one with that 5th pick. I don't think that's necessary. I think they got a good offense. I think they got some good pieces. If they can mesh and go and find a way to get 3 touchdowns a game, I think their defense has the ability to keep teams under 20 points. So look ahead to these Redskins. I think 4-12 record is not something they're going to repeat. I think maybe they can get to 500 this year, maybe 6-10. I think bare minimum. But they're definitely heading in the right direction. Thank you again all for listening and watching. You can follow me on Twitter at GHAM614. I'll be continuing my Washington week tomorrow with my look at the Nationals of the MLB. Bye-bye for now.